Well, it is getting hot and it is very dry. Perfect conditions for fires. This one breaking out yesterday in Manchester Township in New Jersey. Now, this fire has burned about 3,900 acres. Crews continue to battle this blaze right now. We've had warm, dry, and at times even very windy conditions. You see how smoke is really blowing off the treetops here, right? And so you're getting those basically fires are being fanned by what's happening in the atmosphere right now. But the rough conditions, no doubt about that. And not a part of the country we typically think about big fires burning like this. So the fire danger is going to be there in the entire state of Pennsylvania, by the way, under a red flag warning right now, but extends down into the Baltimore area, Hagerstown, and the mountains here of Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland, then in southern New Hampshire, or excuse me, southern New England, not including New Hampshire, is Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island under those advisories as well. And then take a look at red flag warnings in the middle of the country as well. It's warm and it's dry here. It is very windy, and so this is going to be an issue for us here. So, man, make sure that you're monitoring all local burn bans. No outdoor flames right now.
And you pointed out that the wind can make these spread quickly. And so when a fast-moving wildfire threatens, the difficulty in getting people out of harm's way can be significant, especially for communities with limited road options in or out of town. So how can we make wildfire evacuation plans more effective and save more lives in the process? For more, we want to bring in Steve Gwynne, Senior Environmental Specialist at GHD. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. You know, as we move into some of these more rural, picturesque areas, you know, getting into the mountains, that wildlife-urban interface, it also puts us in more remote spots that are difficult to get out of.
Well, yes, thanks for having me. One of the things we've learned recently is that wildfires are becoming more severe, more frequent, larger, and they're affecting new areas, as you noted just then. We can't simply draw lessons directly from previous fires and apply them now. So what we're having to do, and what we're doing here at GHD, is applying computational tools to conduct evacuation analysis. So as you mentioned in your piece just now, looking at how the fire develops, how long it takes to move to a community, given the vegetation, the lie of the land, the wind, and how long does it take for it to reach a community? And then how long does it take for the community to move to a place of safety? What are the initial delays? What roads are available? How many people are on the roads? And then we can compare those two times and say, how big is the threat to that community? Is there enough time given the refuges available and the safe locations? And we do that for a range of different scenarios.
So how do we make it more efficient? Because I'm sure a lot of people, it's not something that they do every day, evacuate from a wildfire, right? And you've seen the video, we all have, right? It's got to be one of the most terrifying things you can do as you're driving out of danger where there's flames on either side of the road and smoke that's clogging up, you know, your visibility as well.
Precisely. And so what we need to do is to get a better picture of where the vulnerability sits. What are the worst fire scenarios that someone might face, and what are the best procedures that might be applied in order to get people to a place of safety? So to do that, you would look at a range of different fire scenarios. What happens if there's a fire in the north, in the south, in the east and the west, and the wind directions are varied? Similarly, how effective are different emergency evacuation plans given the availability of different routes? Maybe you lose a road, maybe there are more people on the road at any one time. And so what we're trying to do here at GHD through our Burntfields offer is to help communities better prepare for wildfires.
As you're doing these studies, what's surprising you? What are you finding out? Are there areas that are more vulnerable? Are you finding that people need more roadways in and out of town? What are some of the takeaways that you've discovered thus far?
Well, I think that's a very important question. There isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all. One fire scenario may affect one community in a totally different way from another. So you would need to assess whether you need to get people on the road more quickly, whether you need a more staged or managed response, or indeed whether you need to invest more in road capacity or indeed manage the traffic flow more effectively. What these types of tools as part of our Burntfields offer do is to identify where the threats might be and what might be more effective responses. So it gives you sort of a, can the community get out in sufficient time, but also allows you a more diagnostic approach where you can dig down and say, what were the things that actually affected the outcome? Was it that there were too many people, or was it that there were not enough roads, or was it that people delayed their response? And if you modify that, you might produce a more favorable outcome. So it allows community planners a better picture on which to make decisions in terms of where they allocate resources and where they might intervene at different points in the timeline.
Really interesting and important work. Steve Gwynne, a senior environmental specialist at GHD. We thank you so much. We'd love to talk to you more here as you continue to study this because, you know, Mike, you brought up a great point. It's scary when you evacuate.
Yes,
it's not something people do often. So they're really getting to the heart of like, okay, what's going to make this easier, better, more efficient, and safer?
And I think they kind of have this community approach to their research, right? But ultimately, too, it comes down to individual homeowners and residents. What are you doing to make the whole process easier for yourself as well? So.